Introduce yourself.
Got it. I love you, Jay. Um, I think the best thing that came out of this pandemic is that, um, oh, I have to introduce myself first. Hi, I'm Liz Bandy. I'm an alcoholic. I live in Dallas, Texas. My sobriety birthday is September 27th, 2004. I have a sponsor who is on this meeting, and I love her very much. And I sponsor women, and I am of service. So, getting back to, I think the best thing that ever came out of this pandemic is that I see people on this page that I have met in person. And how incredible is that? I have been to Tupelo, Mississippi to see Jay. I have been to Burbank, California, and Nat actually allowed me into his house, and I have pet Lexi. Obviously, I've been to Judy's house, but there are so many people that I love in Alcoholics Anonymous that I met on Zoom. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I was like and what happened and what I'm like today. Oh, Kristen, I got to give you a shout out too. You're fabulous. So I was born in Fort Worth, actually. I grew up in Dallas, and I'm adopted. My brother and I are adopted. I was 10 days old when I was adopted. I have an older brother, which is interesting because both of us are in the program and sober. Um, I stay out of his program. That is one of the contentions in my program. But um, if you've been to AA meetings, there are a lot of adoptees at AA meetings. And does this make me an alcoholic? No. Does being 72% Irish make me an alcoholic? No, it might help. But I'm an alcoholic because I love alcohol and I can't stop once I start drinking. And I've tried this so many times. I mean, there's people here from Ontario, and when I see places, I'm like, oh yeah, I made a hot mess of myself there and there and there. And I went to a wedding at Blue Mountain, which is in Northern Ontario, and yeah, I don't remember that wedding. I just remember the taxi drive was really expensive and apples and Mennonites. And that's the only thing I remember about that wedding. Um, because that's the kind of alcoholic I am. And I was praying and meditating today, and something kept popping up. And I want to talk about it, this, because usually that means God wants me to discuss this certain issue, which is mental illness. Now, I know mental illness, but I had no idea that alcoholism and mental illness were the same thing. I thought there was mental illness and then there was an alcoholic. I grew up around people who were alcoholics and also got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. We have a group here called the Preston Group, and many of my dad's friends went there to get sober. And I also know about alcoholism because my dad's best friend was a chronic alcoholic and died of cirrhosis of the liver. And I got to see him shortly before he passed away. And he was what somebody with cirrhosis looks like: yellow eyes, swollen. And I thought, I kind of compartmentalized and said, that's what an alcoholic looks like. It's an older gentleman who is down on his luck, who can't stop drinking. But I never thought that I would actually be an alcoholic. Now, I mentioned, I do want to tell a funny story though, because before I get into some seriousness. So, I got sober in Marin County, California, and they're very big on service. The moment I stepped foot in a meeting, it was like, okay, you are now helping to make coffee, even though I didn't know which direction was up or down at that time. And I remember the first time, oh, this cracks me up. I remember the first time that I was asked to speak. And I think I was 6 months sober. I was so nervous. And it was at a place it's in San Rafael. It's called Helen Vine Detox. I don't know if it's there anymore, but um, my sponsor, Jane, my first sponsor, gave me directions. And she said, you always show up early. You always dress appropriately. I don't want to see any spaghetti tops or, jean shorts or anything. And that's to show respect to Alcoholics Anonymous. So I was so nervous going to this meeting. And I pull up to the wire fences, which I was like, what kind of place am I going to? And I had to like call the guy and and the gate opens and it's got barbed wire at the front and I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen?" I was so nervous. And Jane said, "Okay, remember to get on your knees and pray beforehand." And it was a gravel parking lot, so I thought, "Okay, this is what I'm going to have to do." So I prayed and I thought these people are just going to make fun of me, and I walked into Helen Vine Detox, which I believe is a non-medical detox. There were six people there. Four were completely passed out in these lazy boy chairs, and two were all still completely wasted. And I was like, "What?" She didn't warn me. And she said, and so I called her after the meeting and I said, "Jane, you didn't tell me it was like this." And she goes, "You weren't supposed to know that. You would have made different preparations." And and so that was my first time speaking at an AA meeting. But it's always a joy and a privilege. So getting back a little of my childhood, I had a great childhood. However, by the time I got to middle school, in about seventh grade, I got really, really depressed. And I didn't have any coping skills. I remember sitting in my bathtub thinking I want to die. Now, my group of friends, I was in the popular crowd. They had decided I was too hyper and crazy, and they didn't want to hang out with me anymore. And I look on upon that today, and I think, God, what seventh grader, what 13-year-old wants to kill themselves? Now, you hear about it a lot today. But back then, I mean, I just wanted to die, and I did not have a solution. Yeah, I went to church. I was involved in church, but by the time I got into high school, I was like, that's middle school stuff. I don't want to deal with that anymore. And and then I got to high school, but the summer before high school, we went to the Cayman Islands and my brother's friends were there and I had my first drink, which was it's called a mudslide. And so in the Cayman Islands, a mudslide is basically a chocolate milkshake with rum poured down the straw. It is the most unbelievable drink ever. I like sweet, and that was just, it was a miracle. And I thought, wow, I can hang with these guys. And little did I know, I did not even weigh 100 pounds soaking wet. I was able to drink my brother's friends under the table. Who would have thought? But I could hold my liquor. So I thought, I can use this to my advantage. Because when I got into high school, I still had that depression and I did not have any coping skills. And so I remember the first opportunity, I don't even remember, but I went to a party and I drank, and I was really good at drinking. And I loved it. Everything else was not important. All that stress from school and not being able to do school, it wasn't important anymore. All of those judgments, etc., about other people. See, my head is always talking. It's different today, but it used to never shut up. It would just talk and talk, and I'd be arguing with fake arguments. And oh my God, what did they think of me? And when I drank, it was like, oh gosh. So I didn't care what alcohol it was. I just cared about getting it. And the first time I got overshot the mark, I was 15, and we had gone over to my friend Anne's house, and her parents were out of town. Actually, that was after her parents. No, never mind. Um, and they had a big bar. They were out of town. We were in the back house, and we said, "Heck, we bought Zimas. If y'all know what Zima is, it is basically grain alcohol. It's disgusting. We had polished that off. They drank one and I drank four. And so we decided to hit up their bar and we did a suicide, which is getting different. We had to make sure the measurements were not off so that her parents wouldn't be able to tell. And so, I mean, we mixed scotch and bourbon and vodka, and I drank most of it. And boy, I got sick. I got real sick. But that did not deter me. I mean, they said I was hanging my head on the toilet and that I was making bubbles in the toilet, and I could care less because it was the greatest thing ever. We were playing basketball outside, and from what I understand, it was a good time. It was a good time. And my drinking was not extreme in high school. I did it when I was able to, but I did have a high tolerance and I learned a couple of things. Liquor before beer, you're in the clear. So I decided, I'm going to stay with clear liquor and a little bit of beer and I'll be okay. And by that time I had picked up smoking cigarettes. So that's a really good, it kind of equalizes you, it gives you a break. You go outside to smoke a cigarette, you can't drink and smoke at the same time. But by the time um, I got to my senior year, I knew what the problem was. It was Dallas. Dallas was the problem. All these rich girls that I grew up with, they were the problem. Let them go to the University of Texas. Let them go to those schools. I am getting out of here. Y'all are causing problems. But everywhere you go, there you are. And so I went to the College of Charleston. And if anybody knows about Charleston, this is how I chose this school. So my mom and I were visiting, and I had to take placement tests. And I remember we went to a restaurant. It's called Magnolia's, it's a famous restaurant there. And I remember seeing a Catholic priest polish off 2 bottles of red wine. And I thought, this is the place where I need to be. This is great. They accept a priest at lunch drinking 2 bottles of wine as normal. I'm like, great, this is perfect. And I did okay my freshman year, but then I tanked. I tanked and things started happening that I had a lot of shame regarding. Um, I was I lived in the night. I was a vampire by that time. Sophomore year, I stopped going to class. I was a vampire, and when you're a blackout drinker and you're a woman, good things do not happen. I remember one time I was dating this guy, and he was the local weed dealer. And I don't know if I said I was going to walk home, but I woke up in a rough area of town in a blackout, and I don't even remember how I got there. And, you know, I slept with men that I didn't know who they were. And so it was one of those things, alcohol became my solution because I didn't want to think about that. And I think at that time, I remember telling myself, you're just rotten. You're disgusting. You're stupid. You know that, and you're disgusting. But I kept doing it. I am the jaywalker. I would go out. My day consisted of I would sleep till about 1 or 2, get up, take a shower, smoke some cigarettes, maybe go for a run, sit around, watch TV. We saved on money, so we had the bunny ears. We didn't even have cable. So, you know, you would have to like find BET and like PBS were like the only um channels that we could get. And then I'd start getting ready and make myself look like how I didn't feel inside, which is rotten. So I would make myself pretty and I would go out to the bars. And I knew a lot of bartenders, knew a ton of them. And I know this is an outside issue, but it did perpetuate my drinking. I also was abusing my Adderall prescription. It keeps you up, keeps you awake, and you can drink for much longer. And so it got to the point my junior year, it got really bad. It got really, really bad. And I know I don't have a lot of time. I have some time left. Um, One day, I had woken up and I needed to do school, so I took 100 milligrams of Adderall, which is a very high amount. And I went outside to smoke a cigarette, and I thought I was really hungover. And you know, when just the alcohol comes out of your pores. And I went outside to smoke a cigarette, and my heart stopped beating regularly. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. And it started going bum bum. And instead of being worried and thinking I need to call 911, I actually was so worried because I didn't want people to find out what I was doing. So I steadied myself and thought, okay, we're going to get through this. You cannot go to the hospital because they're going to know how much you've been drinking and how much Adderall you've been taking. So you're going to have to make it through this. And eventually my heart started beating again at a regular pace. But that's so clear to me. That's my insanity is this. I don't want to get caught because I don't want to stop. And at that time, my depression got really bad no matter what I did. And I remember going to sleep at night thinking I was mad at God because when I was a teenager, my friend had died of bacterial pneumonia, Tracy. She had died 20 days shy of her 16th birthday. And I was mad because God didn't save her. And so my prayers at night would be, God, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to Tracy, or I want to talk to my Aunt Gail, who was like my grandmother. And it 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 had never worked in the past. But one night I was extremely depressed. I went to sleep, and there she was. And she didn't say anything. But we were at camp and she was sitting by my friend Anne, and she just looked at me and smiled. And I thought, that's weird. And I woke up. Well, the strangest thing happened the next night because again, I was like, God, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to Tracy or somebody that I love who's there for me. And my other friend, Bert, who was killed in a drunk driving accident, There he was on the College of Charleston campus. And he was walking towards me and he smiled and he hugged me. And then he continued to walk. And for some reason, I knew maybe not then, but someday I'm going to be okay. And I had no idea that God was working in my life. I just attributed it to them because I knew that's how God came. And so I continued to drink. I was put on probation from school. I went home, I made a mess of myself, and I said I need to go somewhere. And my therapist gave me two options for substance abuse treatment centers. And I said, no, thank you. And so she gave me two options. This was November or December of 2003 for places to go in January, and one was in Vermont and one was in California. And I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to Vermont in January. Jeez. So I said, I guess I'm going to California. And I was super excited, but I was sad also because my mom had busted her eardrum, so she couldn't fly with me. So I had to fly with my father. So my nephew was born, he's going to be 21 soon, was born January 5th, 2004. And I said hello to him and then I left for California. But I thought I was going to Southern California. No, I was going to Marin County. And if anybody is familiar with Marin County, it's across the Golden Gate Bridge. And so we landed at SFO, and I obviously did not bring the right attire. And it was rainy and it was miserable. And I was with my father and I wanted my mom. And so we had to go to Fisherman's Wharf, and I had to get one of those SF uh, hoodies that you can see all the tourists. You know, there's a person's a tourist when they're wearing this. And I went to this house where I was going to live. And that was January of 2004, but I didn't get sober until September 27th, 2004. So I didn't associate alcoholism with mental illness. I thought it was separate. And so therefore I had depression. So I didn't have alcoholism. And I was really good at convincing everybody that I had depression, that I didn't have alcoholism, even my parents. So when I went to that treatment center, they arrived a girl who had depression. She didn't have a drinking problem. And it took about 3 months, but I overshot the mark. I love that California grocery stores sold hard liquor. That was a luxury. But I was living at a house and I had been storing my vodka in a panel that said, do not remove the duct tape out on the roof of the house. And I had been making screwdrivers that night. And yeah, I had had a little too much. So I was downstairs teaching two women the state dance of South Carolina, which is called the shag. And they said, wow, you are so happy. It's almost like you're drunk. And Niagara Falls just fell, and just, but, and everybody was mad. And I got a little, but again, I'm good at psychology. So I told them, my therapist and the staff, that I was processing through a situation in my past and wasn't able to cope with it. So I had to drink. So they thought, okay, that's fine. But we're going to take away your ability to drink. So you're not able to drink anymore. And what I locked into my head was, I can't get caught anymore. So I better be careful this time. My God, Karen. Sorry, friend just showed up. And so I would go a month. And then a lot of times they didn't know. I would drive up one of the hills in Terra Linda, California, and I would drink. It was, God, that loneliness, how it describes in a vision for you, people retreat and they leave you, and all the black clouds and all the dark just surround you. And that's exactly what it was like. And so September 26, 2004, my treatment boyfriend had broken up with me. He had chosen codeine that he bought illegally over me. Was heartbroken, so I went to a place called the Flatiron, which is a bar in San Francisco. It's been there since the gold rush. And I sat at the bar and the guy said, "Do you want a drink?" And I said, "Yeah, I want a screwdriver." And I remember the first two, but I don't remember anything after that until I woke up at the Colonial Motel, fully clothed, thank God. But there was the guy, the French guy, I briefly remember talking to the night before, sleeping in the second bed. And I thought, wow, I don't even know how I got here. I had given up everything. And I thought my life was over. Because when I went to the clinical director, she said, "You have a decision to make. By the way, your parents are flying out from Dallas." And I think I was scared straight, thinking my father was going to come and he was going to kill me. And she said, "You have a decision to make. Either you pack your stuff now and leave, or you go to AA." And I said, "I'll do anything." And that was September 27th, 2004. I the first meeting I went to was a women's meeting. I don't remember that meeting, but I went to this meeting called the Mill Valley Beginners. It's on Tuesday at 7 p.m. And that's where I learned how to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and how to be of service. Because you could tell that I was a newcomer. I looked like a deer in headlights. And I was kind of like, trying to remain anonymous, but they can tell. I mean, we can tell when they come in. They have this like scared look or they have the angry look. And so they said, "Hi, what's your name?" And I said, "I'm Liz. I'm an alcoholic." And they said, "Are you new here?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Good. We need somebody to help us make the coffee." And I thought, "What?" And so they said, "Here, go with her. She's going to teach you how to make the coffee." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" I had no idea the size of that meeting either. So when I sat down in the front, because they said, "Here, come sit in the front," and I thought, I got to do what they're doing. And I looked behind me. I didn't know that there were 200 people at this meeting. And I thought, oh my gosh, what? But I had gone to a state of reasonableness and nothing worked. Everything I did didn't work. And I needed people to teach me. And so all I did was follow directions. If you're new or you feel lost or you don't feel a part of AA, I understand. I've been there several times in my sobriety. But I just followed directions. And I got this amazing kick-ass sponsor named Jane. And I was scared of Jane. But I knew I needed somebody who I wouldn't be able to lie to. She turned me down the first time I asked her. "I don't sponsor newcomers." And I said, "Look, you're the only one that can help." And boy, I had no idea she would change my life. I've been blessed with three amazing sponsors. My sponsor on here is exactly what I want when I grow up. She has it. And so I just follow directions. That's all you have to do. Go to meetings, follow directions. And I didn't see miracles after working the steps. I didn't have a fifth step and then burning bush. I am not that variety. But I did notice certain things were gone. I woke up without that dread that like, oh my gosh, I have to face life. I don't want to face life. I don't, what did I do last night? Who do I have to talk to? Who do I have to avoid? I have to turn off my phone. That left me. I could like get up and feel okay about what I did the day before. And there are glimpses of peace where the chatter in my head had stopped. Oh, peace. That's everything that I wanted, to be okay in my own skin. And things just continued to get better and better. And so I went back to college, which I said I would never go back to college because I'm too dumb. And I graduated with a degree in psychology. And I thought, wow, my mom read my thesis and started crying over the phone because she said, oh my gosh, you can write now. And I thought, I know. I don't know. All I did was follow directions. This is all a result of AA. I just came here to stop drinking and not wanting to die. And all these things, these miracles have happened. And so I graduated in 2011 and I moved home to Dallas because both my parents had cancer. After my graduation, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 uh, cancer, breast cancer, triple negative for those who know cancer. It's not a good diagnosis. Her mom had died of cancer when she was 16, of breast cancer. And so I knew it was time for me to come home. And then when I moved home, my parents had a place in Colorado, and my dad and I were picking up my mom. She was flying home from Colorado, and my dad said, "Oh, I just got to tell you that I have prostate cancer." And I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh." But I didn't think of me. This is the change in AA. My immediate response is, okay, what do we do now? Because in the past, it's poor me. Now it's, okay, what are our treatment options? Do I need to go to appointments with you? And I did that with both my parents. I stayed with my mom after she had a double mastectomy. And just so you know, she has been cancer free since 2012. So she's she's a miracle. And my mom had had this huge surgery. We found out I could never be a nurse, which she thought I could. But when I saw her with drains in her, I almost passed out, and that was off the table. No, I can't do blood. But we sat up all night talking. And it was just spending that time with my mom is amazing. I never would have had that had it been for AA. And I got to come home. I got to see my niece and nephew grow up. But life happens. And I want to tell you a little bit about um, the last 5 years. Life is great right now, but life happens. You get older, your parents get older, your family members get older. We just get older. That's part of life. And when I moved home, I also didn't have a program. And I'm going to tell on myself because I saw Judy and I wanted everything that she had, but I was too afraid to ask her to be my sponsor. So my friend Scott, who I don't see anymore, marched right over to her and said, "Judy, are you available for sponsorship?" And she said, "Yes." And I was thinking, what is he telling her? And he goes, "Well, can you sponsor Liz?" And she said, "Absolutely." And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die now. And that's how I got my current sponsor because I'm a chicken. About 5 years ago, my dad got sick and he almost died from two bowel obstructions. But he survived. At that time, 2019 was a tough year. Um, my brother had been in and out of the program, but decided that he didn't need to be in the program anymore for a long time. And eventually I had to work the steps on him with my sponsor because if I didn't, it was not going to be good. I had to let it go and I know what to do. I know to work the steps on family members or anybody to change that relationship and see my part. And so my brother went MIA in 2019 and my dad was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is bone marrow cancer, in September of 2019. So I did what I always do, which is how can I be of service? And so we thought stem cell transplant. It usually guarantees an extra 10 years of life. It's a routine procedure now. And so he had it done and he started getting better. But in that was 2020, the summer. But by the fall of 2020, he started getting sick again. His numbers started going up. And so, we had made trips to MD Anderson and and then we did the next treatment. And that didn't work. And so we did the next treatment. And finally, my dad's doctor discovered why the treatment wasn't working because my dad had three abnormal genes that didn't respond to chemo or any sort of treatment. And so by this time, my father had been on steroids for almost 3 years. If you've been on steroids for a long period of time, it makes you crazy. Please have patience with people who have to be on steroids because um, his doctor was a researcher, and so he wouldn't say no to my dad. And so the last attempt was immunotherapy, which was really, it depleted everything in his system. But it didn't work. So June 10th of 2022, he passed away in hospice. And I have mad respect for hospice workers. Jay, thank you. It's amazing. It is really where you see miracles. Because when I had showed up on a whim and my dad passed 5 minutes after I showed up, it's really interesting seeing somebody die. But I just did what I was instructed to do the next right thing. So I helped my mom, and they have to go in and prepare the body for taking over. He was getting cremated, and my mom doesn't know this, but I have a picture of her straightening out my dad's shirt before they zipped up the bag. and took him away. And we took his wedding ring off. I don't know where it is, but I just wanted that picture. And I just continued showing up and doing what I needed to do and be of service. I'm so grateful that I was able to see him die. He had been gone. He was on pain medication, but I was able to be there for my mom and for my aunt, his sister, and my cousins. I was somebody who never showed up. And so, my life has been, as I said in the beginning, catapulted since the pandemic. My sponsor, Judy, told me about this meeting called PG and Chill. And she said, maybe you need to try going there. But I'm stubborn. And I said, no, or I'd go and I'd turn my camera off. But that's not what I've been taught. I always turn my camera on in a meeting, if you think about it. I always sat in the front row. It's just part of who I am. And so after my dad died, I decided, okay, it took a little while, and you have to make arrangements after somebody passes, but um, I started turning my camera on, and little by little, I started getting involved. And my friend Nat, I don't know if Nat's still on here. Um, he said, "Oh, I secretary this other meeting. It's called the Log Cabin. Why don't you go? It's after PG and Chill." But before that, they had nominated me to be secretary, which I was absolutely terrified because finding speakers for a year, I thought this is crazy. But again, Nat was nominated secretary, and he called me and he said, "Hey, you want to be assistant secretary?" And I thought, "Huh?" And he goes, "You're the girl that was, you know, going against me, right?" And I thought, "Yeah, well," and I said, "Okay." And I had no idea that it was going to start a friendship with him. We poke fun of each other. And I really started getting involved. I'm now security on the PG and Chill meeting. Log cabin, I always hold at least 2 commitments there. And I speak. I never thought I would be a speaker. And this is all from walking into a program where I didn't think I was an alcoholic and just following directions. It's as simple as that. That's all you have to do. There are people here who have a lot of sobriety, and there are people here who are newer to sobriety. I love seeing your faces. I see people that I know from all over the world. I never knew, it is true what they say in the big book that you're going to have a whole host of friends. I didn't know they were going to be around the world, but yeah, they are. How cool is that? It's hilarious how it says modem to modem. I'm interested in knowing what the new edition says. Is it going to say, monitor to monitor or 2 minutes? Okay. Um, yeah, it will be interesting. So, Jay and others, thank you for having me. My life is beautiful today. I woke up smiling. I got on my knees which I always do in the morning. And I said the third step prayer, and life is a little different these days. I've got two behind me right now. God decided that three kittens was a good addition to my life, so I am officially the crazy cat lady. And I love every minute of it. But my life is so wonderful, and it is all to Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a direct result of working these steps and my friendships and the people I just love and love on this meeting. Karen, you came in. I'm so happy to see you. It just makes me just happy and sad. And I know I saw Cheryl come in, who's my sobriety sister. I love her too. It's amazing, isn't it? This life is good. As Judy's husband says, life is good today. Life is good. So thank you, and I'll pass.